You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
Get ready to fight from within. You're about to go behind enemy lines.
Roger, 3-2. Goliath copies all. Go ahead. Target is surrounded by multiple firms entering what appears to be a residential area. Requesting permission to engage.
From the People's Republic of New York City, you're now going behind enemy lines with Gene Baradelli and Russ Gallo.
And you are now Behind Enemy Lines. Hey there, how you doing, America? Gene Baradelli here with you on what was probably the busiest news week we've had in a very long time. Say this about Donald Trump, but there is a pace being set that is really beyond belief. Thanks for tuning into the show. Great to have you aboard. We got a great show for you this week. In addition to the big news breaking between the announcement of Donald Trump, President Trump's Supreme Court nominee, Neil Gorsuch, which we'll get into in a minute. We'll also be talking to two great guests on the show. We got Jenny Beth Martin from Tea Party Patriots talking about how the left is trying to copy the Tea Party movement, but doing a horrible, horrible job of it. We'll also be talking to Cynthia Garrett, the principal of Families Advocating for Campus Equality, and we'll be talking about these kangaroo courts going on college campuses that are taking away the rights of the accused of sexual assault and things of that nature, and we'll explain why this is so important to talk about during that interview. But right now, let's get right into the heart of the matter. The big news this week, Justice Neil Gorsuch has been selected by President Donald Trump to be his nominee to take the seat of Judge Antonin Scalia, the late, great Antonin Scalia, on the Supreme Court. This leaves many people wondering who Neil Gorsuch is. Well, let's get right into his bio right now. And I want to thank SCOTUS Blog for putting up all great information about all the nominees. Judge Neil Gorsuch of the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals was appointed there by George W. Bush and confirmed with bipartisan support, I might add, soon thereafter. He has so many great qualities about him. Besides the fact that he's relatively young, he's only going to be 50 years old this coming year, which means they'll have a whole generation on the court. His background has amazing academic credentials, as you would expect. Harvard Law School, rather. He has clerked under Justice Kennedy, who, those of you who follow the Supreme Court, you should know that Justice Kennedy is usually the swing vote and writes many, many opinions across a number of topics, and having worked for Justice Kennedy, that would mean that possibly Judge Gorsuch was writing those decisions, so he has probably a familiarity with the Supreme Court. As we said, he sits on the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. He is celebrated, according to SCOTUS Blog, as a keen legal thinker with a particularly incisive legal writing and a flair that matches or at least evokes that of the justice of whose seat he would be nominated to fill, that being Antonin Scalia. I heard Senator Mike Lee, former guest on the show, on making the rounds on the Foxes and the other shows, talking about how he has appeared as an appellate advocate before Judge Gorsuch and how he always remarked how he was fair, honest, but that he read all the paperwork. These are the qualities that, as an attorney, at least I know, are those that you want in every type of jurist that you want to appear before. Judge Gorsuch's decisions bear the comparison out between himself and Judge Scalia in that they are both not only entertaining in their writing, and I've read a few of his decisions. Legal writing, folks, is not something you want to read for pleasure. It's something maybe you fall asleep to when you're getting ready for bed. That happens to be my job, of course, outside of the great world I have here behind enemy lines. But Judge Gorsuch has a little bit of a flair to his writing, but he also has the commonality of being an originalist on the court. He's not looking into this progressive idea of a legislator from the bench. He's not going to be making law from the bench. He will apply the law to the facts. He will call balls and strikes, and that's what he does. It's really amazing the similarities here. On religion, he's been an ardent defender of religious freedom. You'll recall that Gorsuch participated in the Hobby Lobby case and also the Little Sisters of the Poor home that were both before the Supreme Court. Hobby Lobby, Judge Gorsuch wrote a concurrence with the decision, siding with Hobby Lobby and its owners, and he stressed the need to accept these parties' own conceptions regarding their requirements of their faith. This is important. If you remember the Hobby Lobby decision, it was if a company and the majority of its owners have deeply held religious beliefs, they have to be respected, and they have to be They're important, and they must be legally bound by. So Hobby Lobby was, allowed to give out certain contraception that it wanted to. Others that it was religiously against, it chose not to. The owners decided that. In Little Sisters of the Poor, Gorsuch was, again, joining with the 10th Circuit, joining with judges who actually dissented from the denier of the rehearing of the matter. The point was that there was insufficient deference to the Little Sisters of the Poor on articulation of their religious beliefs. Why is this important? Because there are cases and there's law across the nation where, you talk about, there was a Sweet Cakes case in Western United States where, if you didn't want to serve a lesbian or gay couple because of your deeply held religious beliefs, they were compelled to do so, and they had to face a six-figure fine and penalties for not doing so. Judge Gorsuch would have decided, if it was left to him, presumably, that if someone has deeply held religious beliefs, they can run their business as they see fit. I'm going through SCOTUS blog, and listen, you don't have to take the word from me, folks. You can go to scotusblog.com and take a look. And it goes into such detail, his feelings on the death penalty, his feelings on the Commerce Clause, which will be tested probably by many jurists and many cases. Commerce Clause, for those of you who know, deals with regulating business between the several states. And the Commerce Clause and the so-called Dormant Commerce Clause, which is really a construction of the court, is something where it seems like Judge Gorsuch's opinion will be very significant. He believes, as I'm going through this, it's not really such a hot button now. If you remember, there was an argument under Obamacare that the Dormant Commerce Clause would allow it to be under the federal purview. There's so much information you have to deal with when dealing with these nominations. But listen, feel free to go to scotusblog.com, check him out, put his beliefs to the test, see if he's the one for you. I, as a conservative and as a constitutional originalist, believe this is a great pick. An absolutely great pick. Now let's talk about the politics of the situation, because this is where it's going to be a battle royale. Here, let's set the field right now. Donald Trump has placed his pick before the Senate. Senate Judiciary Committee is going to have their hearings. They're going to vote whichever way they're going to vote. It's held majority Republican right now, so he'll probably get past the committee. But it all depends on how much hemming and hawing you're going to get from the Democratic side. Then the fun begins on the floor of the Senate as a whole, because as it stands right now, under the rules of the Senate can still filibuster if you don't have enough votes, the 60 votes that you would need to pass the nomination of a Supreme Court justice. So that means unless you get a certain number of Democrats on your side, I believe you're going to need 8 Democrats to have a filibuster-proof majority. What's going to happen there? We already know that Chuck Schumer has vowed to go against any nominee of Trump, which shows you how crazy the politics is in Washington right now, folks. They didn't even know who was coming down the pipe. They didn't know if it was Neil Gorsuch or Judge Hardiman from Pennsylvania, or if it was going to be Judge Pryor, or whoever it may be. But they were dead set against it no matter what. And the reason why is because they feel this is a, quote, stolen seat, because the Republicans, as the Senate majority under President Obama, refused to even take up the nomination of Merrick Garland in the waning months of the Obama presidency. So now it's tit for tat. That's what they're doing here. It's absolutely disgusting and the most base politics you'll ever see. And you see it right now already with President Trump's nominees for his cabinet. We're still waiting on a Secretary of State. We're still waiting on a U.S. ambassador. We're still waiting on a Department of Treasury head. We're still waiting on Health and Human Services head. We're still waiting on a number of positions. And the reason why is petty politics. It's absolutely ridiculous, folks. I don't know why the nation is standing for it. The stock market certainly is not standing for it. The stock market has been dropping the past couple of days, especially early this week as you're listening to the show. And what we're seeing is instability in the market being caused by this Democrat hissy fit. It's absolutely unbelievable. But back to the battle for the Supreme Court now. The filibuster may be in play, but as we saw when Harry Reid was running the chamber, the filibuster rule, the so-called nuclear option, was taken up by the Democrats. They decided for lower-level offices and certain cabinet positions, you only needed a simple majority. That way the filibuster was taken out of play. So now that the shoe's on the other foot, will Mitch McConnell take the filibuster rule, the nuclear option, and bring it to another level with Supreme Court nominations, a move that Harry Reid said he was actually in favor of when he was still in the chamber, that he would have done had he still been in charge? Will Mitch McConnell take that and put it on the table to bring Trump's nomination home? That remains to be seen, folks. It's going to be very interesting to see. If I'm Mitch McConnell, that's kind of a catch-22. If you worry about being looked as a hypocrite, if you worry about political hypocrisy, you don't do the nuclear option. That being said, it shouldn't be on the table at this point with the nomination just coming out this week. What should be on the table is trying to consensus build. Neil Gorsuch had bipartisan support when he was appointed to the Court of Appeals. There was no issue with his nomination at all. The reason why there's an issue with the nomination now is because of the balance of the court. You have 4 justices that are considered liberal. You have 4 justices that are considered centrist or conservative, so-called, or if you want to call them originalists or constitutionalists, strict constructionists, whatever you want to call them. That's the makeup of the court right now. By putting Neil Gorsuch in Antonin Scalia's seat, resets the balance of the court where it was to before Justice Scalia passed. So what we're seeing here is a battle, not only in this administration, but a battle for the ages. Because Neil Gorsuch, again, he's just turning 50 this year. We're going to see what happens. He'll be around. Remember, it's a lifetime position. He'll be around for a generation or more. That's what's on the line right now. And right now, and to me, this is the battle that voters wanted waged. I voted for Donald Trump, not because I like Donald Trump. I gotta be honest, I'm not thrilled with him. But he promised to put conservatives on the court, especially into Justice Scalia's seat. He is now fulfilling that promise, and he is rewarding my vote. I love that. I love that Donald Trump is following through on what he's saying. And let's face it, as we sit here right now, he's followed through on everything he's promised so far. From that respect, it's been a very good couple of weeks if you voted for Donald Trump and if you believe that he's going to make America great again. But before we get into everything else, folks, I want to thank everybody for listening to the show. Check us out at www.behindenemylines.radio.us. Check us out on the Facebooks and the Twitters at BEL_radio. And if you missed any part of the show that we normally do live on Tuesdays at 10 p.m. Eastern Time on Spreaker, you can check us out at any one of our rebroadcast outlets, including WJHC 107.5 FM in Jasper, Florida, WDDQ 92.1 FM in Adel, Georgia, and WLBB 1330 AM in Carrollton, Georgia, all part of the Red Nation Rising Radio Network. You can also catch us online at KLRN Radio, High Plains Talk Radio and Sackheads Media, ICRN, the Internet's conservative radio network, and Lanterns Radio. Check them out at lanterns.buzz. And if you missed any of those rebroadcasts, don't worry. You can still catch us on demand as a podcast anytime you like, just by finding us in iTunes, Spreaker, TuneIn, Stitcher, Podbay, Player FM. You can discover us on Google Play Music. You can find us on SoundCloud. And you can also hit us up on iHeartRadio. Lots of ways to find us, folks. We really appreciate you tuning in. And we hope you tune in after the break, because when we come back, we'll be talking to Jenny Beth Martin about the left's attempts to copy the Tea Party. We also talk about what we want to see from a Neil Gorsuch nomination. At the time, we didn't know it was going to be him. So we talked about qualities that we want to see from a judge that Donald Trump would pick to be a Supreme Court justice. And we also talked to Cynthia Garrett about the so-called kangaroo courts popping up on campuses thanks to the Obama administration and what can be done to stop them. Gene Baradelli, Behind Enemy Lines. Russ Gallo can't make it this week, but don't worry, I'll be back right after these brief words. If you're a long-time listener of the show, or maybe this is your first time listening, you can probably tell that me and the gang here, we like to have our share of fun, whether it's on or off the air. We talk about 2-drink minimum radio and no medication Wednesdays or whatever day it may be. That's why when we found the people at Less Government, More Fun, we knew it was a match made in heaven with this show. Folks, we live in a time where government is out of hand. Our founding fathers did not intend government to be all-consuming in all parts of our lives. That's why we are telling you to go to lessgovmorefun.com, check out the website, check out the swag. What the people want is less government, more fun. Pass it on, make it happen.
Who might you save?
Your mother, your father, your husband, uncle, aunt, son.
Learn FAST, F-A-S-T, the sudden signs of a stroke, and you could save.
Your friend, teacher, boss.
F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. F-A-S-T. That's F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. The sooner they get to the hospital, the sooner they'll get treatment. And that can make a remarkable difference in the recovery of
your neighbor, the waiter, grandmother, grandfather.
So learn FAST, the sudden signs of a stroke, then pass it on, because you never know who might save you.
Your wife, your colleague.
Spot a stroke fast. Visit strokeassociation.org, brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
Behind Enemy Lines Radio is all about being right. No, seriously, it is. If you ever listen to Russ Gallo or me go back and forth on some issue, we always want to make sure that we remember who said what and when we said it. That's why we go to GoOnRecord.com. It's a brand new social media website. Challenge people on what they believe, whether it's in politics, sports, entertainment, finance, whatever. There's a category for you at GoOnRecord.com. Check it out right now. Tell us, what do you stand for? It's time for you to go on record.
Behind Enemy Lines. Back on the air.
Gene Baradelli, back behind Enemy Lines. Joining me on the line right now, it's a pleasure to welcome to the show, Tea Party Patriots president and co-founder, columnist and contributor to the Washington Times. We're going to be talking about the error of Trump and how the left seems to be copying exactly what she did. Jenny Beth Martin, hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Do you feel like you're being plagiarized at all by what the left has been trying to do recently? I mean, you are one of the, pioneers of the Tea Party movement. Of course, Tea Party Patriots, one of the premier organizations in the conservative movement and the Tea Party movement. Do you feel like the left is kind of trying to steal your playbook?
Well, I think they're trying to steal the playbook, but they're missing the mark. They're definitely having protests and events around the country, but they're falling short of what we did as we began with the Tea Party movement.
So what exactly are they missing out on? I mean, the Tea Party movement, obviously a very successful movement over many years, but at the start, it was a very large, I remember, tax rally on the National Mall. And it seems like they got the rally part right, but what are they missing?
Well, they did get the rally part right, but when we first started, we did not have big money or 50 different groups on the right who were already established helping us organize. So they've got a bit of a leg up that we did not have. As far as being paid for by George Soros, and there are apparently 50 national organizations who have been helping them. We were struggling to be able to pay for the jumbotrons and the barricades and the necessary AV equipment at the Atlanta Tax Day Tea Party back in 2009. But go ahead.
No, well, I was going to say, so obviously what they're missing out on is that this is a populist movement, the Tea Party movement, that was not born of any single ideology. It was just a group of Americans gathering around a common issue, and that was frustration with the way government was operating.
Yes, frustration with the way government was operating, and specifically with the stimulus bill that was moving through Congress, and that was on the heels of President Bush's bank bailouts and the TARP bills. So it wasn't just with President Obama, but it was also with Republicans. So both parties. We were upset with the overspending from both parties. Then there's really, if you're going to look at what the left is doing, there are a few things that they could learn from the way that the Tea Party worked. The first thing is you've got to be for the rule of law. We did not have to go around saying we are a peaceful movement, do not be violent, do not break the laws, because the people in our movement knew that already. And they've got protesters who are leaving messes behind, who are damaging property, who are just not being respectful of the rule of law at all. They don't respect the system. They don't seem to respect the system the same way that the Tea Party does. We love our country so much that even when we don't see the results that we want to see, we understand that it's a system that produced it, and we love and respect the system. And by that I mean, like in 2012, President Obama was reelected. We did not want to see President Obama be reelected, yet we respected our fellow citizens and their votes and the effort it took them to reelect him. We respected that about our system, and we continue to work within the system to change it. They're very, very angry, and I understand anger because I have been white-hot angry at the way things happen in Washington myself from time to time. But anger alone isn't a principle. You've got to take that emotion and be for something. You have to have values and principles that you're for, and you've got to know where you're going. And right now on the left, it seems they're still trying to figure all of this out.
Right. I think one of the major differences, and you highlight this in your work with the Washington Times, is that the marches currently are against the person in the office, President Trump, while the Tea Party movement was organized to oppose policy of President Obama. It was never about who was in the office. It was about what the office was doing, right?
That's correct. We may have been, from time to time, frustrated with President Obama, but it was far more about the actions that he was taking, the stimulus bill, cap and trade, Obamacare, making up immigration laws through executive order, the specific things he was doing rather than the man himself.
And you know what? It also sounds like that the organization structure of the Tea Party was bottom up. It was grassroots, rising tide, lifting all boats. The organization of these marches seemed to be top down from organizations supported by, in part at least, George Soros and others, in that ilk, right?
It does seem to be that way. No, I don't. I sometimes get. It seems based on the news reports that George Soros is paying for part of this. I'm always a little bit cautious when I see that, because we've been accused of being paid for things that we are not paid for. But we've seen Craigslist ads that are calling for paid or protesters to come out and be demonstrators to show up. And then I also have seen things on Facebook and social media where there are people who are going, they've never been to a protest before at all, and they're just going out and expressing themselves.
Yeah,
so there's
I've never
definitely money there helping them organize, but I do think that there are also volunteers showing up at their events.
Right, but I've never seen a conservative, or I've never met a conservative, I should say, that showed up to a rally just because they were getting paid, for sure. You know what? Enough about these guys, though. I want to get to talking to you about, President Trump, and we are in the era of this new president, just starting out week 2. As a Tea Party conservative, how do you feel about how President Trump has gone about his business thus far?
Well, I think that what we're seeing can be summed up with promises made, promises kept. He is keeping the promises he made during his campaign, and it's refreshing to see that happen. He's doing what he can to ease the burden of Obamacare to the extent allowable by law. He's working to enforce the immigration laws, not create new immigration laws, but just enforce the laws that are on the books. He's putting a pause on the Syrian refugees to make sure that the vetting is happening in a way that is as thorough as possible to protect our country. We know that pause will be lifted once he and his administration is certain that the vetting is going as far as they can. We're going to see a Supreme Court nominee named, I believe, tomorrow. And I would have every reason to expect that Supreme Court nominee will be from the list who he said he would pull from during the campaign. And so we're going to see a constitutionalist get on the Supreme Court. We're going to have a lot of work to do to support that person. But it's very refreshing to see someone who is elected to office who is keeping the promises he made when he was running for office.
How important is it to you and your organization and your supporters that he does indeed follow through with picking an originalist for the Supreme Court? I mean, that's the reason why a lot of conservatives kind of held their nose and voted for him, right?
Yes, I think that is by far the thing that they voted on more than just about, regardless of where they stood in the primary. Once the general election came around, the Supreme Court was the unifying factor for people within the Tea Party and even regular Republican voters who I met around the country. They were concerned about the Supreme Court. So this appointment and making sure it's somebody who is an originalist, who continues the legacy of Justice Scalia, is critically important to those who helped elect President Trump. And we may even have additional vacancies during his administration, but this vacancy right now needs to be filled with an originalist.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. Last question, and then we got to let everybody know about Tea Party Patriots and all the great work that you're doing. How do you feel as a Tea Party conservative and just someone within the movement about President Trump's use of executive orders thus far? Is it because he doesn't have a full cabinet and Democrats are delaying the process without reason, or do you feel that this could be a bad sign for future presidential overreach?
No, I'm not. I'm not concerned about that right now because his executive orders are very clearly saying to the extent allowable by law. So ease the burden of Obamacare to the extent allowed by law. In the Obamacare law, the Affordable Care Act had so many instances where it delegated the power to the Secretary of Health and Human Services that there is a lot of room for changes through the executive branch. Now, I would say that's not the best way to write a law, but that is the law right now. He is working to enforce the immigration law, and he's also working to roll back the things that President Obama did that were an overreach of executive power. President Trump right now is not trying to expand the power of the presidency, and in fact is working to shrink it down a bit. And so I think it's not just the number of executive orders we have to pay attention to, but what's inside those executive orders and what they are doing.
All right.
And the Democrats do need to go ahead and fill out this cabinet. We need the president to have a cabinet so that the cabinet members can do their jobs and advise the president.
All right. Jenny Beth Martin, co-founder and national coordinator of Tea Party Patriots. I'm going to see if I can do all the plugs for you. It's kind of my New Year's resolution for everybody instead of having everybody plug themselves. Check out Tea Party Patriots at www.teapartypatriots.org. You can check them out on Twitter. Jenny Beth Martin, of course, on Twitter as well, at JennyBethM. JennyBethMartin.net as well. Check out that great website. And I think I got everything, right? Oh, I didn't get the Tea Party Patriots Twitter. Which one is that?
TPP or TP Patriots, TP Patriots on Twitter.
I almost got it all. Jenny Beth Martin, thanks so much for coming on the show. First time on the show. I hope we have you back real soon.
Well, thank you so much. I enjoyed being on.
Behind Enemy Lines.
Joining me on the phone right now is a pleasure to welcome a fellow attorney to the show, which is so rare for me to do. I love talking shop with other attorneys. Talking with Cynthia Garrett. Cynthia, of course, is the co-president of Families Advocating for Campus Equality. We're going to be talking a lot about issues on college campuses, issues of fairness, and it's going to get really wonky for you legal fans out there, but it's also going to be a lot of policy stuff too. Cynthia, thanks for coming on the show.
I'm happy to be here.
So, like I said, you are the co-president of Families Advocating for Campus Equality and also a board president of Stop Abusive and Violent Environments. Tell us a little bit about the work that your organizations do.
Well, Stop Abusive and Violent Environments focuses on more of the policy and legislative angle in trying to override the overreach that the Obama administration has been involved with in education. Families Advocating for Campus Equality handles some legislative and policy issues, but its primary mission is to support the families, traumatized families of falsely accused or wrongfully accused students who go through a lot of pain. You know, we have a lot of parents who the first they hear about it is they get a call from the hospital. Their son's been hospitalized for a suicide attempt. So it's a pretty serious situation.
Yeah, it's absolutely serious. I mean, we've talked a lot on the show about how campuses are really more of a training ground for setting a liberal mindset than anything else. Talk about what happened back in the Obama administration in 2011 with the Department of Education starting to really, I guess, pressure schools to take away the rights of people who are accused of such horrible actions.
That's right. In 2011, April, the Obama administration's office, it's actually the Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights, issued what was called a Dear Colleague letter to all of the colleges and universities in the campus in the United States who had accepted any federal funds, and that included students on aid. They basically told them that they had to lower their standard of proof in sexual misconduct matters to basically more likely than not. I call it a hunch because all it is 50.01%. Basically, they say, well, maybe I believe her a little more, maybe I believe him a little more, and that's the end result. But the problem is they also want these students suspended or expelled, and they can't get into other colleges. I mean, basically their lives are over, and now there's all these, proposals to put this information on their transcripts permanently. And this is a lot of what we're talking about are not criminal activities. I mean, the Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights defines sexual misconduct so broadly. Unwanted touching. I mean, we have a kid who literally was invited to lay next to a girl because she didn't want him to drive home drunk, rolled over in the middle of the night, put his arm around her, fully clothed. She felt uncomfortable. A law student, he was suspended for 18 months for that. We have another one who basically leaned over and gave his partner of 21 months a kiss in the morning. He was expelled for that. I mean, it's mind-boggling what they consider sexual misconduct. And when it's stamped on their record, nobody knows that it's some silly thing. What would you assume if you saw that on a record? You'd assume the worst, right? You'd assume that they did something horrendous. Well, before I became familiar with this, I would have assumed that. They also discourage cross-examination. There doesn't have to be even a hearing. You can have one person investigate and adjudicate. Evidence, a lot of times these schools don't give the students any access to evidence. They don't even let them read reports that the decision makers rely on to find them responsible, which is mind-boggling. Why in a process to find the truth would you not allow an accused student to see the evidence against him?
And I'm trying to understand why authorities aren't being brought in who are professionals of investigating such things to determine whether or not there's actually been any sort of misconduct at all. I mean, I understand things being broadly defined and things like that, but this sounds like you're letting the inmates run the asylum almost.
Well, yeah, and these inmates, if you're referring to the administration, are terrified because, there's this threat to take away funding, which really isn't legal. And I don't believe they can do that because they didn't properly pass this, comply with the Administrative Procedure Act with the Dear Colleague letter. But that's another story. But they also put them on this, what I call a list of shame, which has now more than 300 colleges on it. The Department of Education adds them to this list just when they start an investigation. So there's no finding that they did anything wrong, but they're still on this public list, and colleges want to avoid that at all costs.
Right. Now let's be clear. We all can agree that cases of sexual violence do occur on college campuses, in college communities. I think what we're talking about more is an overreaction and an overreach that hurts not only the accused and infringes upon their rights, but also hurts the credibility of women reporting such actions. Because now if you're reporting, like you said, an arm while you're sleeping or a kiss on the cheek or whatever the case may be, you're now hurting the next woman coming forward with could be more serious allegations, and you're hurting the accused at the same time, right?
That's absolutely true. In fact, I know some, I shouldn't say real rape victims, but real rape victims who in court, they've been proven to be victims, who are so angry at this entire thing because it minimizes what they've experienced.
Right. So now we have a new administration. I believe we're still waiting on Betsy DeVos to be confirmed as the new Secretary of Education. Has there been any indication from either lawmakers or from the new administration or maybe from the incoming secretary herself to show that they would want to walk back this policy and restore some of the credibility that we were just talking about?
Yes, with both Save and Face, I've probably been to or scheduled hundreds of interviews in Congress in D.C., and generally in the past, and unfortunately in my opinion, it's been a partisan issue. And more often the conservative congresspersons are more willing to look at this and admit that there's been extensive overreach by the Department of Education. So we're hopeful. I think Betsy DeVos, given all the acrimony over her, and I don't know if you're on Twitter, but it's really, really awful. She's been reluctant to make a statement specifically about this issue. However, we have several senators who are adamant about this. I want to say James Lansford out of, I think, Oklahoma is one. Lamar Alexander is appalled at the thousands and thousands of regulations that these poor colleges are now subjected to. We've had Senator Lee. I could probably name a few others, but we've had some very strong support out of Congress.
Great.
Of course, we also have people like Kirsten Gillibrand, who calls innocent student rapists and invites liars to her.
You don't have to say another word about Kirsten Gillibrand to me, being in the People's Republic of New York that I am. So I totally understand that. To me, I don't understand why this would be a partisan issue so much as it is basically an equal rights issue. You want to make sure that our constitutional rights are preserved, whether we're on a college campus or not. And you also want to protect women who are experiencing, serious sexual assaults, no matter where they are. And it seems like this is harming both of them. So have you been framing this as sort of not a partisan issue, but just a constitutional rights issue?
I don't think it should be a partisan issue. I think it's a right or wrong. Like you said, it's a constitutional issue. It's a civil rights issue. But, I can't help the fact that it tends to fall along party lines.
And that's pretty unfortunate, especially with an issue like this. And especially, I'm sure as being a mom yourself, I don't know if your children are college age or not, but to go into that environment where it's really their first experience outside of the home on a regular basis, and not just sleeping over someone's house for a week or whatever, to go into that sort of environment and to be walking on eggshells thinking, how do I act around this person? It just makes the college experience that much more awkward and going through it that much more uncomfortable, right?
Right. In fact, I have two daughters. One is still in graduate school. The other is finished with college, who've gone to college. So obviously I care about this issue, and I care if anybody, sexual assault is a horrendous thing. But there's no question about that. And I'm not a rape apologist, because that seems to be the go-to accusation if you say anything on the other side. But, I think the problem is, though, you'd think that these young men would be afraid, but the truth is that they're not aware of the situation even if they are aware, this is the typical young 18, 19-year-old who says, well, that'll never happen to me. I'm a nice kid. I'm never going to hurt a woman. Well, it doesn't matter what their intent was. It doesn't matter if inadvertently they forgot to ask if they can move to base 2. It's irrelevant. And they specifically say it's irrelevant.
It's like you said, like we said before, it's the inmates running the asylum. I want to make sure everybody listening to the show checks out Families Advocating for Campus Equality. FACE is a great acronym, by the way. Go to www.facecampusequality.org. Also on Twitter at FaceCampusEqual. And also, definitely check out the Twitter for Stop Abusive and Violent Environments at SAVE, S-A-V-E, services.org. And check out their website at saveservices.org. This is a lot of work that you're taking on, Cynthia. I hope your practice isn't suffering for it, because I know from tilting at these political windmills, you get fully engrossed in it. So good luck to you with all this.
That's, you with my husband would tell you, yes. Of course, that's the case. I mean, when you feel passionate about something, that's what happens.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing your passion with us, and good luck to reaching your goal.
Thank you for having me.
The show will be right back. But first, a word from Al Sharpton.
Good evening, Rev. Thanks Good evening, to Rev. You, Ed. Is this Groundhog Day 2? We are watching that was Attorney General Eric Holder, ABDs, about some Republicans at home are already beating the drums of war. Today, the Pentagon refuted that claim. And he said the American people do not want him to, quote, dwindling, they do not want him dwindling his thumbs. You can get a gig as a contortionist. Intravenous fluids and pills coated with gelatin. We don't leave our women or men in uniform behind. It's a monument to the hubris of Dick Cheney, Representative Raul Labrador. Years of abuse. I personally apologize to Mr. Peebles. Just ask to soon-to-be former Congressman. Democrats are outright jitty. CIA's counterterrorism center. Veteran Affairs Secretary Shinseki. Why do I always mess up his name? Shinseki. I love my critics. I have fun with that.
Politics Nation with the Reverend Al Sharpton starts right now. Good evening, Rev.
Good evening, Dr. Dyson.
But wait, there's more.
And we will much about that be committed. So there's no real conflict. Michael Druniak, including Lincoln himself, Daniel Day-Lewis. Behind Monica Lewinsky, the one and only Trey Songz is here. But Allison Lundergan Grimes, Gina De Jesus. When Gina De Jesus, Tea Party challenger Matt Bivens. People don't want to have their Social Security overall. The Republican savior, Mark Rubio's big night. In evolution and Galileo, this whole thing of Galileo, America's changed. Unless IT and Skillets, President Putin doing something similar back in, it won't change this fundamental fact about the GOP. Just how absurd these attacks is. Nearly 6 months after the dangerous traffic jam, the Thai military says, my friend for many years, Ilyana Van Zandt. There's nothing there.
And they gave this guy a TV show? Let's get back to our show.
Gene Baradelli, back behind enemy lines. I want to give a shout out to my co-host, Russ Gallo. Again, folks, we're working through the technical difficulties of working 70 miles away from each other when we used to be sitting right next to each other at my kitchen table or at a friend's house or in an office somewhere. So we're going to get Russ on soon, I promise. I miss him too. I miss him dearly on the show. And That's going to be part of the things we're going to be doing differently on the show. We're also going to maybe dabble in some video. Might do a little bit of the Facebooking, maybe doing a little bit of that live streaming stuff. We'll let you know as time progresses what we'll be doing. Before we end the show, of course, I want to thank Jenny Beth Martin for coming on the show. Check out all the social media stuff we talked about during the interview. The same thing for Cynthia Garrett and FACE, her organization. Definitely check out very important causes here, folks. Obviously, the Tea Party, we all know about the Tea Party. We want to support the Tea Party. I consider myself part of the Tea Party. Russ is definitely a Tea Party conservative. And, of course, FACE, when you're dealing with issues on campus and young people, so important to make sure that we are not only preserving their rights and making sure that they grow up to be good human beings with great character, but the development is so important emotionally that the things going on campus right now, having them to decide for themselves beyond any sort of legal standard that's recognizable, what happens to their lives can leave a black mark on them forever. So definitely check out Cynthia Garrett and FACE and her organizations as well. Going to end the show with just a very briefly touching on the so-called refugee ban. If you've been to www.BehindEnemyLinesRadio.us, you know that I have been really upset about a certain meme circulating on the internet right now. Go to www.BehindEnemyLinesRadio.us. You'll see the article there about how this disgusting meme is lying about American deaths and the effects of refugees coming into this country. You may have seen this meme circulating talking about that no Americans have been killed by citizens of any of the T7, the 7 countries identified by the Obama administration, as it were, that are either state sponsors of terror or are so torn by terror that they don't really have a functioning central government where we can verify a refugee or a person coming to this country that they are actually a good person. What I decided to do was take this meme and tear it apart. Just so you know, what I'm talking about is points about each of these countries that make them a prime example of why we should not be inviting anyone from them into this country. These 7 countries are, state actors known for supporting terrorist groups, have terrorist groups acting freely within them, and we don't want that coming here. I don't understand what the problem is. To say that no Americans have died in Iraq or because of Iraq is just a straight out lie. As of last week, 4,425 Americans died fighting terrorism as part of Operation Iraqi Freedom and the cleanup thereof. Believe what you want about the war and whether it was a good war, a just war, whatever you want to call it, a just operation, whatever. The war was against state-sponsored terrorism and was against linking Iraq and Al-Qaeda. That tally, by the way, includes civilian casualties as well. And Iran, I mean, listen, come on, Iran, really? That we should let people in from there that freely move here and there? Iran has been sponsoring terrorism around the world for decades. It's even been said, according to published reports, that the actions of Iran acting in Iraq resulted in the death of at least 1,100 American soldiers that we just talked about earlier. They're known for being a state sponsor of Hezbollah. They have, they've acted in a key role in 1983 with the bombs in Beirut that killed 241 Marines. Come on. Nobody died. That's ridiculous. Libya. I mean, other than that little thing in Benghazi where 4 Americans were killed, or that whole Lockerbie bombing of Pan Am Flight 103, I guess there really isn't much to talk about there. I mean, it's only 274 deaths just there. You can throw in the bombing of that discotheque in Berlin that killed a few Americans as well, and it doesn't matter about anything. Somalia. I guess whoever made that meme didn't check out Black Hawk Down or knows about the Battle of Mogadishu. Or they don't know that there is a very unique history in our own country, specifically in the state of Ohio, where Somali immigrants have attempted and performed acts of terror. Ohio State University being a prime target of them. Come on, folks. Do you care that Somalia has their own brand of terrorists? Al-Shabaab, al-Somali jihadists there? I mean, do we care? Of course we should care. People will say, well, there hasn't been a terror attack here. Well, take a look at the people who committed a lot of terror attacks. Does Tsarnaev in Boston ring a bell at all? There's many others, folks, that were either radicalized or influenced by people from these countries. Sudan, yes, the Sudan, the third largest African country in the continent, right? Our ambassador and his driver were murdered there by a militant Islamic organization, Ansar al-Tawhid. I don't even know how to pronounce it. Tawhid, yes. And Ansar al-Tawhid. Come on, folks. There are terrorist groups right now training in the Sudan. This has been known since 1997, at least. There are published reports in the U.S. Senate reporting on the elements that are actually violent terrorist organizations that are training in Sudan. They have terrorist training camps there. Do we want to bring people in from that country where there are so many linkages to terror? Come on. Syria, totally war-torn. We know all about what's going on there. By the way, one of the S's in ISIS is for Syria. Just saying. Yemen, do you remember the coal? I mean, come on, folks. How many American soldiers were killed and injured there? 17 and 39, by the way, just so you know. There's been books written about Yemen. Terrorist groups are in Yemen. This week, we bombed areas in Yemen that are supposed to be known for terrorist groups. If you see this meme online anywhere, it's a gray box with some writing in 3 columns on it. If you see it, call BS. Let your friends know this is not only fake news, it's dangerous news. Because Americans dying is just one of many reasons why this temporary travel ban should be in place. The other reasons are because these countries cannot give us the information we need. They're either state sponsors of terrorism themselves, or they're so war-torn by terrorism that they don't have the wherewithal to contribute the information that we need. And I guess that's going to be it for me on this show, folks. It's been a quick hour. I have to say, I appreciate our time together. Next week, some more great guests. Who knows with this news cycle? There's going to be so much going on. But until then, from the People's Republic of New York, I'm Gene Baradelli. This has been Behind Enemy Lines, and we're going to shut this sucker down. Good night, folks. We are out of here.
Our position has been compromised. It's time to roll out. Report for debriefing at www.behindenemylinesradio.us and look for regular communications via Facebook and Twitter at BEL_radio. You are the resistance. Behind Enemy Lines. A Rock Radio production. Copyright 2016. Back in 7 days. Out.